Okay, so welcome to Wild Women. Today we have a very special guest with us, and we're going to be talking a lot about spirituality. So, Camille, can you introduce us to our guest today?
Yes. So Melissa was actually my spiritual coach at one point this summer, I think. But I've been following you for years, and I just think that what she do is amazing. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions or misunderstanding around what you do. So hopefully this episode will be able to enlighten some people.
I certainly hope so. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm really excited to share anything that you guys want to know about.
Actually, did you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, just give us a quick rundown about who you are and what you've done?
Okay, cool. So I am a Canadian girl from Montreal, currently living in Italy by the sea, and I am a Reiki master healer. I mean, there's so many words and terms to describe what I actually do that it's just like kind of funny to just put it into words. Camille said spiritual coach. I'll take it. Basically, I help people, create a spiritual practice, and we get into that spiritual world for sure. We do healing, and I do, belief-free programming, and I use a lot of different, actually scientifically proven modalities as well. So it's not as woo as many people would think. And I've been doing this now as my actual job for almost 5 years now.
Wow. And how long have you been living in Italy? What made you decide to move there?
So I've been living here for a little over 4 years, and I moved here for love. My husband is Italian, so I came here to be with him.
Oh, that's such a cute story. So I guess the first question we could ask is, so what is astrology? A lot of people think that it's only like your sun sign, but there's more to it. There's the moon sign, there's the rising sign. So can you explain to us a little bit about those two?
Absolutely. So astrology is actually something that's been around for like ever. I don't even know how they did it in the medieval times to actually like measure and figure out at how many degrees like planets were. Like this is like people needed to be mathematicians and like, you know, be really great minds to put together this whole thing. And basically we have a whole natal chart, and astrology is based on what the sky looked like in relation to the earth. So astrology is earth centric, just for the sake of astrology, because we're living on earth and the planets affect us in relation to where we are in the cosmos, right? And then so obviously we have our sun sign, so that's the sign that our sun was in when we were born, and the sun moves sign every month. So that's why there are 12 zodiac signs, right? The moon, let's say for our moon sign, is the moon moves about like every 3 days or so. So the moon signs shift pretty quickly, and our moon sign represents our emotional world. So someone can be like, for example, my sun was in Cancer when I was born, but my moon is in Taurus. So my emotional world is very much ruled by the things that are typical of a Taurus, and I can attest to that 100%. And by the way, you guys can get all of this information if you go just search up free birth charts online, and you can put in ideally the exact time that you were born, or you can estimate, and it'll give you all of this information. And then the rising sign is the sign opposite of that's a good, it's your ascendant sign, and it's a sign that is how people perceive you. And so people will, and it's funny because it really is accurate. And astrologers can usually pretty much tell, like just talking to people, and even just like with celebrities, like they can be like, oh yeah, sun, moon, rising, they can tell pretty quickly, just by the way a person is. They can guess with pretty good accuracy.
Yeah, and people often think that like it's a generalization because I mean, in journals, that's what they do. But they don't realize that we also have like the South and North Pole, and we have like all of the houses and all. So once you like dive into it, there's so much information.
Right. And I think another variable too is that there are evolved and unevolved versions of the signs as well. Right. We all know the typical, for example, Scorpio that's vindictive and paranoid and like a little scary, but not all Scorpios are like that. Right. And some have done, the personal development and have, grown beyond those, kind of like immature behaviors.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you're Reiki healer. So to someone that doesn't know what Reiki is, can you explain?
So it's an energy healing modality, and it's based on the fact that we all have energy running through us, right? And that energy can get blocked from a multitude of reasons, right? Stress and illness and, traumatic experiences and so many things can trap energy in the body. And when that happens, that makes us, have actual like physical and emotional and spiritual and mental symptoms. And what Reiki does is basically, I want to preface this by saying I call myself a Reiki master healer, but anyone that calls themselves a healer and believes that they're the ones healing is like for sure a charlatan. Because it really is the energy. Like I'm a channel for the healing energy. And so I've learned the techniques in which I can channel this life force energy. Prana, chi is what it's often called. So just so people that are coming at it from different angles understand. And so I can channel this energy and with various techniques and send it to people either in person or from a distance in all directions of time. So it's quite clever, right? Since it's universal life force energy, it can be, sent anywhere, anytime. And it just restores that flow of energy in the person's body. And I have like a little bit of a, Camille, I have sort of a different approach with it. I've sort of established my own my own method of using it. And since I am, and this, people can take it or leave it, but I receive guidance and I have sort of like visions and like scenes unfold for me, and I see symbols and all kinds of stuff when I'm performing a Reiki energy healing session on someone. So as I'm going through and clearing the blocks, I'm getting insights about like where they're coming from, how the person can move forward and like, resolve this problem and heal long term. And so I'm a really big believer in empowering people on their healing journey. You know what I mean? Like give them, I don't want to just like not say anything, perform the healing, and then they go on and continue to perpetuate the same blocks in their lives. I like to give them the tools that they need so that they can empower themselves, bring more awareness around, the stories that they're telling themselves, the limiting beliefs, and, get to the core of the issue so that they can move forward and not have that block come up again.
For sure. And also, I think because when you did it with me, you mentioned that some of my chakras were blocked. So can you tell us more about like how chakra works? Like how many we have? Because I know some people don't know.
So this is something, that's a great question, by the way, but we have actually like infinite chakras, but there are 7 chakras within the body. And so those are the main ones that people know about. But then there are chakras like above us and below us, and those are sort of like the astral chakras. But for the purposes of this session and also with Reiki healing sessions, I do focus on the ones within the body and one right above the head. So I'll usually do 7 chakras. So they're energy centers in the body. And then they sort of they're connected to different organs and different systems in the body. So each chakra is sort of associated with a different organ, a different system, and also different like emotional and like spiritual qualities as well. And so, for example, I use the term blocked, again, just because it's easier for people to understand, but it's usually just when I do a preliminary scan and I see which chakras are sort of like calling my attention. That's just because that chakra is calling my attention in that moment. I'm being guided there for a reason, and there's information there that I need to share with the person. And then for like, because the term blocked is just so easy for people to understand, but I just get like a snapshot of like what the situation is in that moment. It doesn't mean that like someone's got a blocked chakra, they gotta do some real work. We all are works in progress, and we all are sort of like in this healing journey, if you do decide to embark on a healing journey, of course, right? And so usually if there's a chakra calling my attention or it's quote unquote blocked, it just means that there are the person is either dealing with physical ailments with organs associated or parts of the body that are associated to that chakra, or they're having like emotional issues, or there's trauma stored there, right? And when the chakra, like ideally you want your chakras, and I'm sure you've seen the memes on Instagram, to be like aligned, cleared, activated, all of that stuff. And so a disclaimer I like to give with working on your chakras. So if you want to do like a guided YouTube meditation for chakras, go for it. It's a great way to like get connected and sort of like feel it for yourself. But a disclaimer I like to give is that if you're going to be working, let's say you want to work on one particular chakra, like you look up and you're like, oh, I need to work on my heart chakra. I just like, broke up with someone. I need to like do some heart healing. I would say, great. You can do that. You can, breathe into it and do all that kind of stuff, but you want to make sure that you balance them afterwards. Because if you're just pumping a bunch of energy into your heart chakra, then your chakras are no longer aligned or balanced. You want to set the intention, even just, with the power of your mind, set the intention to align and balance the chakras is usually just powerful enough.
Oh, that's so important. Like, I didn't know that. And where are they, the chakras?
Yeah. So there's the root chakra at the base of the spine. And that one's very much tied to our survival, and it's the foundation of our being. So home, family, the body, all of that kind of stuff is the root chakra. And then there's the sacral chakra right above it. So it's usually like a little bit below the navel. That's the sexuality, sensuality, creativity. So, and it's the emotional center of the body as well. So we often store a lot of challenging stuff there, right? And then there is the solar plexus chakra right above it. So it's right above the navel, like right under the rib cage. And that's associated with our perception of ourselves, our self-worth, self-confidence, digestive system. So there's, this is where we also like digest things that have happened to us and, vis-a-vis our perception of ourselves, right? So that too can be pretty intense. And then there's the heart chakra. I mean, all the pretty obvious things like love for others, but also love for ourselves. That's where our inner child hangs out too. So if you want to do inner child healing, they'll usually be led to the heart space as well. Then throat chakra, communication. And it's not just, about speaking your truth. It's also how we listen to and have compassion for other people as well. Third eye, again, between the brows. And that is where our intuition lies. That's where, we receive guidance, and we sort of like have our psychic abilities hanging out. And that's where we have, our third eye, where we can, perceive things and read energy and stuff like that. And then there's the crown chakra right at the top of the head. And that is often named the gateway to the divine. That's how we, receive, that chi, that, life force energy. And that's how we sort of understand how the universe works and our place in it as well.
That's amazing.
So how did you get involved in this world? Like, what was your motivation, or was it really just sparked by an interest in something?
So this is how I'm probably going to tell you guys my life story. So basically, I've always I've always been like that weird kid that's like, ooh, something's gonna happen, or I was getting like premonitions. And even as like loved ones would pass, I would receive like visitations in my dreams, and just a lot of kind of like intuitive hits even as a child. So I've always sort of felt that connection, and I also struggled with anxiety, probably because of my sensitivity to all this kind of energy stuff, right? So I was always hypersensitive, and so I sort of like shut it off. For my teen years, I'm like, I want to fit in with the world. Like, being a teenager is hard enough, right? And I only really started diving deeper into it was when I started getting into fitness and doing yoga and connecting more with myself. And I was like, ooh. And then I started, meditating, getting into like oracle cards and tarot cards and crystals. And that's when I really started communicating with my guides and opening, that floodgate of communication. And the rest is basically history. I started just like with, anyone else, I would suggest is just like follow your impulses and follow like what you feel curious about. Like if you're curious about oracle cards, or you're curious about crystals or something like that, like just research, get into it, play around with it, and see how you feel, because your journey will unfold from there. And then I was a health and fitness coach, and I realized that I was, just coaching people on, you know, having this relationship with themselves and using, you know, the law of attraction and, you know, really focusing on mindset and self-care. And I was like, okay, I feel like I haven't talked to anyone about food or workouts in a really long time. So maybe I need to shift my focus, you know? And so that's what I did before moving to Italy. I was like, yeah, no, I need to focus on where my passion truly is. And so that's where I made the shift.
Mm. You talked about the law of attraction. So can you tell us more how that works?
Okay, so again, well, I'm like full of disclaimers today, but so there is, you know, the law of attraction. There's the book by Esther and Jerry Hicks, Abraham. People can look into that if they want to. That's how I really got into it, and that's how I learned that basically. And so the big thing is that your thoughts create your reality, right? And so and you know, manifesting your desires through, you know, focusing your attention on what you want versus what you don't want. Thing is, that's how I got into it, and that's what I based my business on at first, helping people just like manifest what they want. But as I was going through it, I realized that it's not just about our thoughts. It's about our subconscious beliefs. And those subconscious beliefs are created between the ages of 0 and 14. And I realized this because I was coaching people and even just seeing with myself, like some things are easier to manifest than others for different people. Some people have like an easier way with it. And I was like, why is that? You know, I was just trying to understand. And I realized that it comes down to our beliefs about the world and how they were formed as children. And oftentimes they're informed by traumatic experiences or trauma, you know, big T trauma, right? And so we need to heal our trauma and you know, do that kind of work if we want to be able to manifest the big things or manifest the things that otherwise we don't believe is possible for us. Like if you can keep your thoughts as positive, quote unquote, as you want, and you can focus on like the Mercedes G-Wagon that you want, but if you don't believe that you can truly have it, you're never going to manifest it. And actually you're going to create more resistance on your path because you're ignoring the real thing that wants your attention, which is the trauma that needs healing.
And I think we call it like shadow work. So how can someone like know when they have to do some shadow work and some inner child healing?
Well, I mean, if we've learned anything in 2020 is that everyone can use some shadow work and some inner child healing, and we'd all be better off if people did that, right? And it's just about like, you know, just the term shadow doesn't make it very enticing, right? And so it really is just about having the courage to look within and really understand why we are the way that we are and what we believe about the world and the way life gets to be for us and what our place in the world really is and do that, you know, that deep diving within ourselves. And yeah, sometimes the shadow in and of itself, Camille, I'm sure you know, is basically a place in the subconscious where we relegate everything that we don't believe is acceptable, everything that we want to disassociate from ourselves, everything that we know about ourselves that we just don't accept or we don't think others will accept, right? So it's not a bad place. It's actually a place that lovingly holds on to all of that stuff until you're ready and courageous enough to look there and be like, okay. And it's not about healing the shadow. It's just about acknowledging all of those parts of ourselves that we previously hadn't accepted and embracing them, being like, yep, all of these things are me, and that's still okay, and I'm still lovable, and I'm still worthy.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, we call it like spiritual bypass when people like want to manifest something and then they just ignore like completely those kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, just in general, trying to be positive all the time. And, you know, I've definitely been guilty of that, being like, you know, just look at the positive, just look at the silver lining. And I realized it's actually the most harmful thing that you can do. And you're not going to, quote unquote, manifest something negative if you have negative thoughts. That's not the way that it works, you know? It's like you don't like visualize a car crash and then it happens in front of you. You know what I mean? It's about really looking at things honestly. Spiritual bypassing is super harmful because you're creating more resistance. You're putting more stuff into your shadow, right? Because you're saying, oh, that's not acceptable to think about, to look at, to talk about. And when you do that, you're saying, I'm not worthy of healing my pain. I'm not worthy of accepting myself fully, of accepting the whole range of human experience.
Mm-hmm. And I see it almost as like self-sabotage, right? Because we can have like some behaviors after that actually make it true and reinforce that beliefs that we have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Then it's just this web, right, of behaviors and thought patterns that are going unchecked, that are just continuing to perpetuate cycles in your life and patterns of things that you don't want. And then you're like, what the heck? Like, I have been visualizing the $1 million in my bank account. Why isn't it there? In the meanwhile, you're ignoring like your belief that you don't deserve XYZ, you're not worthy of, that life, that quote unquote millionaire life.
Mm-hmm.
So where did you do a lot of your training? Like, were you able to find that type of training in Canada, or did you have to like travel to different places?
Yeah, well, now it's gotten really, really widespread. There are amazing online courses, and some of the certifications that I've done have been online, and I don't knock it. Like, I create courses to, as a Reiki master, for example, I train, Reiki practitioners online, and there's nothing wrong with online courses. But yeah, these things have become more and more widely available. I remember when I was getting started with Reiki trainings, it was like some lady in her basement doing it. But now there are just like whole academies, there are whole retreats available everywhere, basically. And, from being from Montreal, it's a big city. There are just like so many different places that you can go. It's people, I guess, in smaller rural areas that maybe have a harder time. But again, that's where, learning these things online is really great.
So we talked a little bit about karmic lessons. So how does karma and karmic lessons works?
Okay, well, usually karma and karmic lessons are things that come from past lives. So if you believe in past lives, it's just that there are patterns that get repeated until we learn the real lesson. And that's what a karmic lesson is. And oftentimes, usually these patterns just like continue to perpetuate in your life, even just like with different people. So you'll notice this with people, for example, that just like get into like the same kind of relationship with someone. This is like the easiest example I can give is that like you have this friend that just like always goes with the same kind of person and just continues to get hurt, and it's just like a perpetuated cycle. And it's like this person is going to continue to live that pattern until they stop spiritually bypassing, knowingly or not, and acknowledge what it is at the core that makes her or him want to continue to do this, or what belief is really at the core of that, what fear is really at the core of that. And oftentimes it is something that's been going on for lifetimes.
And you mentioned like crystals. So what is your favorite crystal and what are the properties for it?
So crystals are a pseudoscience, and there's not like real hardcore scientific evidence about it. So people can take it or leave it for sure. I definitely feel the benefits of crystals, and I'm definitely a fan. And I do like to, clear them and charge them at the full moon, at the new moon, that kind of thing. And I like to use crystal jewelry. And I have many favorites. I like one that, it's kind of an obscure one. It's ametrine, which is a mix between amethyst and citrine. And it's beautiful. And it's just really powerful because amethyst is probably one of the most commonly known crystals, and it's a very powerful one. If you're having trouble sleeping, put a little tumbled amethyst under your pillow, you'll be golden. And citrine is like the abundance kind of crystal, and so that mixed together is just really powerful. I might actually have one nearby. I know that this is probably just audio, but I can show you ladies sort of what it looks like.
Ooh.
And so there's like kind of like gold in there and purple. So it's pretty cool.
So how has your profession as a healer kind of affected your life as a whole? Like, it seems like doing what you do would impact your emotional being so much that it could really perpetuate your personal life. Do you find that like how you heal and how you live, they kind of go hand in hand, or do you try to separate those two avenues of your life?
I definitely get what you mean about it just having such a wide reaching effect on all areas of my life. And it definitely does, because I make sure that if I'm going to be showing up and helping others heal and helping others grow and evolve, I need to show up as my best self, and I need to walk my talk. Absolutely. Like in terms of coaching, that's true. And in terms, I'm sure, as if someone's a therapist or whatever, they want to make sure that they're showing up on their A game, because people are coming to them for help. Right. And so that has been a really great side effect for me when I've turned this into my profession, because it really does just inspire me and push me and motivate me to go deeper into my healing journey, because I cannot bring someone as far as I've gone. You know what I mean? Like I need to go further so that I can bring people further into the healing journey with me, you know? And so that's what pushes me to discover new things, new techniques. And, you know, like I mentioned with the law of attraction thing, like my belief around that totally evolved with my experience around it. And then in terms of the other areas of my life, like that's naturally all just going to be improved as I gain more awareness and as I heal more things. And it's really wild because, you know, in the past couple of years, I've gotten really into sort of like ancestral and generational healing, and even just like healing my own like inner child stuff and the stuff about like, you know, trauma of growing up and stuff like that. I've noticed that my family members are on their own healing journey. It was like kind of like I don't want to take I don't want to take all the credit, but it's like they've gone through a transformation as well. Obviously, I'm kind of leading by example, but it has these ripple effects, even just like in the spiritual world, right? Where if I'm healing something that's associated with someone else, they're going to feel that. They're going to get, and if they're, you know, people that are doing personal growth and they are focused a little bit on their healing journey, they're going to perceive that, and it's going to like nudge them along. And it's just wild because I've seen my parents change, I've seen my brother change, and it's just really, really interesting to see that all unfold, especially. That's probably one of my favorite, you know, side effects of it.
It's definitely amazing how that happens. You mentioned the full moon and the new moon. So for someone that has no clue what it does, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Right, absolutely. So, you know, if you've ever looked up at the sky, you'll notice that the moon goes through phases, right? It goes from, you know, the full moon, like the big white circle in the sky, to just like a tiny sliver. And I hadn't noticed until I started really studying moon cycles that there's even a dark moon phase where you don't even see the moon at all for 3 days. And so these different phases of the moon are, you know, take it or leave it again. It's a pseudoscience, but it's something that I definitely feel is true, and something that I definitely perceive is that at the new moon, it's a brand new cycle, right? So it's a time to set intentions. It's time to wipe the slate clean and really decide what you want to have grow into its full iteration at the full moon. So from between the new moon and the full moon, there's about 2 weeks. And so it's just a really great time to, and then for the full moon, you're actually at your most psychic, your most intuitive, time of great healing. And it's a time where, you know, things that have been hidden are illuminated, right? Because the moon is at its biggest and brightest, right? So it'll illuminate. It's a great time to do some shadow work. Absolutely. It illuminates what's been hidden in the shadows, right? And then every month, the moon and the full moon and the new moon are in different signs. And so it's just really interesting to sort of play around with that and see how you feel when the moon is in a different sign, or how you feel during a new moon versus how you feel during a full moon. And it also very much depends where your moon in your chart is and what your chart looks like in general and how that interacts with the current state of the cosmos.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of memes around like Mercury retrograde. So what is it?
Right. So it's Mercury, the planet, you know, seemingly moving backwards, and really it just has like slowed down in its course. And so from our perception, our vantage point on Earth, moving in our orbit, it'll look like Mercury is moving backwards, so retrograde, right? And during this time, all of the areas of life that Mercury governs, which is technology and communication, kind of go a little haywire. And so this is why people blame Mercury retrograde for like exes showing up in the DMs or technological stuff going wrong, like, you know, stuff with emails and like computers crashing and, you know, communication, miscommunication and all of that kind of stuff. But I honestly think it's a great time. Like if you make sure that all of your work is backed up, you double check your texts and your emails and you just make sure that all of those, you know, areas of life are covered. I think it's a really great time. It's a time for us to slow down, and it's a time for us to revisit and reassess the areas in our life. And it's like a 3-week period where you don't have to necessarily feel like you need to be like going and creating and building momentum. It's a time to slow down and be like, okay, let me, you know, tie up all my loose ends, which is great, right? In a world like today's where everything is so fast paced, it's great to have a time where it's actually favored to like have a minute with yourself and be like, okay, where am I going? What's going on? What do I need to, you know, finish up? And what are my plans for the future? You know, do I still want to go in the direction that I'm headed in?
Mm-hmm. One of the most important questions right now for me, because I've been like really looking at it, is what is feminine and masculine energy? So we all have both of them, right?
Right. Absolutely. And so it's just that, you know, those are the dualities that exist within us, right? And so feminine energy is that receptive energy, that intuitive, nurturing energy, and male energy is that giving, action-oriented, kind of forceful, like let's get her done kind of energy, right? And so both are useful. And honestly, even when I'm doing, for example, a reiki healing on someone, I'll notice different chakras will have like a different dominance or an imbalance, right? So if someone that's afraid to speak their truth, for example, in their throat chakra, it'll be more of a feminine flow. It'll be a more observing, receptive kind of vibe. And then so what I'll usually do is be like, no, this person needs to speak their truth. So I try to shift it and rebalance it and bring in a little bit more masculine energy. And then in terms of what people can do, not as Reiki healers, but within their daily lives, is just notice which areas of their lives there may be like being too forceful, or they're not, integrating themselves and speaking their truth. It's very much, very, very advantageous to have that moment of reflection and be like, okay, where am I like going too hard, and where am I not, taking up the space that I need to take up,
Yeah, so important to really go with the flow of like the two energies. I find like there's time to rest and then there's time to actually work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're getting down to the end here. So is there anything that you can tell us that can basically just help people who are just starting and like venturing through their spirituality? What kind of things can they do? Where can they start? What people should they listen to in podcasts or read about?
Great question. I love this. So first of all, there are so many varying opinions out there, and there are so many different gurus and experts. And I would say, while it's great to dive in and find someone that you resonate with, never undermine your own intuition. And we all are intuitive. We all have the ability to be psychic, and and we all have our different abilities of perceiving things that are not seen. So never discount your own intuition. And I feel like the goal with the spiritual journey is really just about connecting with yourself first and foremost, instead of trying to connect with ascended masters, whatever. If that's your journey, that's your journey. But I feel like first and foremost, getting really solid in trusting your own intuition is really, really powerful. And you can do that just by creating the time and the space to, listen within and receive, really cheesy, but the answers really are within you. And I feel like oftentimes when people are starting out on their spiritual journey, they're giving too much credit to the people to the mentors and the gurus, right? And then that just creates such a big distrust in ourselves. And I think it's just so important to just, connect with yourself. And then, yeah, cool. There will be mentors there, but take everything with a grain of salt. And there are tools as well. Like if you feel called to, like I said earlier, if you feel called to oracle cards or tarot cards or crystals or runes or all kinds of different things, like just follow that path and trust that you're being nudged along and you're being guided, and you can trust that guidance and you can trust yourself first and foremost. And I think that with that, it's just, let it unfold naturally and have that feminine flow about it.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Oh, thank you guys so much for inviting me. I had the best time. And if anyone wants to reach out, they totally can. Maybe you guys will have my info in the show notes.
Yeah, we will. And
Awesome.
Where can they find you? So Melissa Hetu?
Yes, so that's on Facebook, and on Instagram I'm Light Love Prana, and those are my main two outlets. So people can reach out to me there if they have any questions. I'm usually hanging out in my inbox anyway, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.